Hello, I'm Sheila Blanco, Public Information Manager for Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools, and today we're having another district discussion. We are talking to Ms. Onitha Bonaparte, the director of our school food and nutrition department, and it has been it's always busy for you, but it's kind of been a crazy busy year for you this year.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, on a normal basis, how many students does the SCCPSS Food and Nutrition Department feed every day?
If it was normal, we feed close to 39,000 meals a day.
Because that's breakfast and lunches.
Lunch. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes. That's
if I'm
a lot.
cooking for 40 at a party at my house,
that's a lot. You know,
I'm overwhelmed. But you've got a whole staff that knows what they're doing to cook for that large amount of students.
Yes. That's what we do.
And this year, what you guys do really changed to a certain percent. I mean, you're still preparing those meals, but all of a sudden, you had to prepare all the meals to go out and be delivered. So there are certain things you have to take into consideration, then what's going to keep and what's going to be able to travel. And then when we started the school year and we started the hybrid situation, now you've got students in school, you're having to feed the normal school lunch, school breakfast, as well as still prepare meals for those students who are out learning from home, and those have to be delivered. Tell me a little bit about how that has happened this year.
One of the things that has happened is you still need the same amount of staff. And you need the same amount of staff because now we are preparing meals differently. As normal, the student comes through the serving line and they're able to choose what they want. They're able to select items that they want. But now we have gone into a menu where it's not offer versus serve, which means we plan a menu that the student receives, and we pack it, and it's almost like bags inside of a bag, so it takes more labor to do that, especially to prepare them the way they need to be prepared, because if we're putting chicken in, we want to make sure that it's not cross-contamination, so we prepare that chicken very delicately to put in that bag next to fruit, veggies, and milk. The staff, this is what school nutrition does. Our objective is to feed the students. That's the end game. It's been very challenging, only because this is out of the norm. Feeding students in a brick and mortar is much more easier than it would be feeding them off of a school bus. Who would have known that we would feed students off a school bus? But one of the things that has been very encouraging with partnering with transportation, you know, every time the student sees the bus now, they know there's a meal coming. And we want to make sure that the community knows that we are here to support the students of Savannah-Chatham County Public School. That's the objective. I have a staff that has over 300 employees, and you know the district is really taking care of those employees. One of the things that we do, we make sure that they have the necessary PPE because they are in close proximity of each other. Every day I send them an email reminding them to practice safely in this pandemic, and you know, they do that. The space is conducive for them to be 6 feet apart. And I emphasize that every day. I send them a pleasant message every day because this is different for them. This is different. This is a different way of feeding students. And it can be very, very taxing. And trying to keep them positive is what helps when the food goes out. It's packed in a way that is with love. And we don't shy away from meals like macaroni and cheese, fried chickens, and collard greens.
I was going to ask you about that when you mentioned chicken, because I think a lot of people who maybe don't have a child that's been receiving meals at home think that, well, there's no way they're delivering the same type of meal that the students in the school are getting, whereas the students are getting a hot lunch in the schoolhouse. But when you're having to deliver something, I would imagine a lot of people think, oh, it's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or fruit or something. And I'm sure it is some of that, but you're actually delivering things. You said like macaroni and cheese and chicken and everything. Tell me how that is done.
Well, because we've gone in a mode now where we're feeding students in person at school sites and virtual. What we do, we have one menu, and we're able to prepare to go out to virtual the same meal we serve for the in-person student.
Wow.
We freeze part of the meal to make sure the meal stays at the correct temperature while it's on the bus, but they get the same items that a person in school in the brick and mortar building gets.
And they can just take it home and heat it up in the
put it in the
microwave or the
microwave.
oven. Yeah.
And we give them heated instructions. And now I think we've gone through the cycle menu that most of them know how to heat those items. We try to make sure it's something that a child can easily put in the microwave. We don't want to put anything in the meal that they have to put in the oven because, of safety concerns. We want to make sure, we're trying to show them a little level of independence so they can put their meal in the microwave. Hey, I got a Hot Pocket. Or hey, I have a corn on the cob. But it's the same items that we use in person. And that makes it a little easier for the staff to prepare because using one menu, we serve milk, we serve juice, we serve fresh fruits and vegetables. It's the same thing as if they were in a brick and mortar, but it just takes more time to prepare.
And even though, even when students are in the classroom right now, it's still not being served in the traditional way because they're not allowing students to gather in the cafeteria and stuff, right? I mean, is it being served more in the classroom? Are students coming to pick it up? I've seen it done different ways at different schools. What's the general consensus on that?
Well, the only thing that's consistent is the menu because every building is different. Every building doesn't have the space for students to come through and practice the 6 feet social distance. So I try to emphasize to the managers that it's based on a site-by-site basis. Get with your principal. You guys come up with the concept of how you're going to get meals to the students because we want the meal to be as hot as possible. And if you think about it, if the child comes to get the meal, it is hotter for them because their hands are on it rather than having someone come get it and then dispersion to them. But in some scenarios, that just can't happen. So we try to make sure that the teachers know that we are trying our best to make sure that the meals, because they have to stay at a proper temperature in order for the students to consume. So, but you have some sites that it works out great. The kids come through the serving line because we are not identifying students at this time. So all they have to do is pick up and go, which is an easy concept. But as I stated earlier, some buildings just can't supply that type of operation. But we make sure that the meals are hot. We make sure that the students get what they need the first time around. We make sure that the teachers know that we are doing, it's a partnership. And that's one of the things that we're Savannah Chatham School District. And one of the things that I love the team mentality that we have, a partnership with transportation. I can prepare meals all day long, but I can't move them without transportation. So I just can't say enough about that team. They have just come to the plate and make our jobs a little easier because, as I stated earlier, who knew we would be delivering meals off of a school bus, so.
And I want to talk about something that you mentioned. You said you're not identifying students, and you mean by that every student, because of a waiver from the government due to the pandemic. We've had free breakfast for years in Savannah Chatham County Public Schools. Any child who wants a breakfast can eat breakfast for free at school. But we're also now, because of a government waiver during the pandemic, school lunches are free. So they are not having to come through and swipe their student ID or, the parents pay a certain amount in. It's all being provided to the students. And that is wonderful because a lot of families are having extreme economic hardship during this time.
Absolutely.
So that is something important for people to know. And that's continuing through the end of this school year.
That's correct. That's correct.
That's got to make it hard for you, though, to know exactly how many students are going to eat on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you are delivering meals. You don't know who's going to show up at a bus stop. You've got meals available in the schools for the students who are doing hybrid learning. How do you plan when you don't know exactly how many students are going to eat? Or is it something that it took you a few weeks to kind of get a grasp on, okay, well, on average, this many students eat from the school each day? How is that being handled?
Well, the school nutrition program follows the same plan as if the students were in the building.
Mm-hmm.
You have to use history. And when you're producing, we use history. We have a 3-cycle menu we usually follow. So if this week we're only serving 200 hamburgers, then the next week we know we need to prepare, the next cycle we need to prepare 200, but they may change their minds.
Right.
So we use a lot of history where that's concerned. Same thing with the virtual meals. It took us some time to figure out how many meals to prepare, because when we first started, we didn't have enough meals. You know, but when we started in March, we had too many meals.
Right.
So we were able to use the history, because we do production every day. The school nutrition program does production every day, in which they have to put the amount that they anticipate they're going to serve into the system, and it spits out a recipe of how much or what they need to prepare. And as I listen to the chatter on the radio, there are some areas that on one day, every child may come pick up a meal, and then on the next day, they may not. So what they do, they communicate with each other. Hey, I have some extra lunches over here. Do you need some in this area? So during the course of the the time they're delivering meals, most of the meals are delivered to students. So we try not to have any meals come back.
So that goes back to that whole teamwork thing you were
Yes.
talking about,
Yes.
working together to make sure that
Yep.
these meals get
And
where they
if you
are
listen
needed.
to the bus drivers, oh my goodness, they have it down pat. I usually have 10 people in this area, but only 3 show up. I have 7 more meals left. Anyone needs them, and they know it's a time constraint, so they make sure those meals are out quickly. And they do a wonderful job. And I told them, every child you see, give them a meal. It's just disheartening to know that you have students or families that are struggling to put food on the table. And one of the things that school nutrition and the district wants to do is to make sure they have 2 meals. If nothing else, I know they have 2 meals, and I sleep well at night knowing they have 2 meals. So it touches me on a personal level, because I consider them all my students. You know, so I know they belong to the district, but you know, school nutrition, when it deals to meals, we want to make sure that they get something to eat, and that's what our end goal is, and that's why the employees come to work every day to do that, and you don't hear them complain. I try to give them everything that they need, because it's stressful enough for them. So anything I can do to relieve that stress, I will do. And if that's coming to help you serve, coming to help you pack, delivering foods off the bus, it does not matter. I'm one of those directors that I like the hands-on approach. It's been a little challenging for me to do that, because I've tried to do so many things to make sure they have things going. We used to have 21 sites. Now all schools are open. So meals are being served practically in every school in the district. Our meals have increased like 3 times more than what it was when we were just doing virtual.
Wow.
But the virtual meals didn't slack off much, you know, which is great, that we're still catering to the virtual students.
Right.
We probably picked up some new ones. The ones that come back in school, we're feeding them. So the majority of the students on each cohort are eating. And we're trying to capture all that are in attendance. And you're still going to have students that bring food from home.
Right.
But, you know, one of the things that the district and the school nutrition program I'm looking at is trying to do what you call a backpack buddy, which is like if they bring something from home and they want to get a milk, a vegetable, and a fruit, then I can consider that a reimbursable meal, and they still can get it at no cost.
Okay.
So I'm trying to see if I can work that in. I'm just trying not to change, you know, the mold right now,
Right.
because this is what the second week of that we're doing the kids come back with the hybrid and the cohorts. So I'm looking at what cohort, how many students in cohort A that eats and how many in B. So I'm doing some history for them. So when I do reach out to them, hey, you might need to increase your meals by 100 because it looks like cohort B is eating more than cohort A. So so it's
a lot of things you have to take into consideration.
Yes. But the end goal is to make sure they get a breakfast and lunch every day. That's the end goal.
One more thing I wanted to talk to you about regarding those meals. Whether it's pandemic time and you're making meals for virtual students and meals for students in school, or it's regular time when you got all the students in school, there are certain criteria that the school meals have to meet every day, certain nutrition goals. Tell us a little bit about that and how that is worked in through the different menus. How do you develop the menus that make sure that you have all those components there?
One of the things that the federal government sent down to us was a guideline of what we need in a week. We need to have a certain amount of wheat, whole grain, as you call it, a certain amount of orange vegetables, certain amount of green vegetables. You know, it's not as simple as people think of putting a menu together, and we have to do it by different age groups. You know, the elementary school doesn't eat the same as the high school, so we have to pack the meals based on the age and grade level. We still have to make sure it doesn't contain as much sodium as it used to be in the past. But nothing really changes because we still ordering from the same vendor. They're still supplying us those items that meet the specification. So I have a menu committee and I have a district chef that put those menus together. They put it into a formula that spits out, hey, this is what I'm doing for the week. I have enough orange, green, starch, whole grain that I need to make that menu work. But it is a taxing, it's taxing because, you know, you want to give the students what they like.
Right. Which isn't always the same as what they need.
Exactly.
I think that works for all of us, student or not, or adult.
Exactly. So the vendors make it pretty easy for us because they have formulated the product for us to meet the specifications that we need to meet. And we try to give them 5 components, which is a fruit, vegetable, milk, whole grain, and you have to put in there the orange and green and the starch. We have beans galore, and they make a corn and bean salsa. We have ranch beans coming in, I think one of the menus for National School Breakfast Week. We try to use everything that we possibly can to cater to what the students like and make it healthy for them. We serve pizza. Believe it or not, the pizza is a whole grain crust, skim cheese, low sodium tomato sauce, and turkey pepperoni. We very seldom use pork. If we do use pork, we identify it on the menu. And the only 2 pork products we use is barbecue pork and I think we use a Carmenito. It's pork. It's still pulled pork on a sandwich, but other than that, most of our products are turkey and chicken based products, right down to the hot dog. But you know, it's easy once you get to doing it, and we have the vendor that supplies the products. We don't have to think about it.
Right.
Just putting the menu together to make sure that it's a reimbursable meal is what's the challenging part. And we don't want to...
and reimbursable, you have to meet those certain guidelines in order for the federal government to provide those funds to pay for the student lunches.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So we don't want to give them cereal every day.
Right.
You know, although we have some students who would prefer to have cereal every day. And you mentioned the peanut butter. You have students, Uncrustable is a favorite item for students. It's like a peanut butter, a jelly sandwich, Uncrustable, between 2 slices of whole wheat bread, and they love that. But we try not to, because students have allergies, so we try to make sure that we are serving meals that doesn't cause a child to have a reaction. So there's a whole lot that goes into that meal planning. We ask parents, we send out surveys to see your child have any allergies to anything that we serve. And some parents call in and say, hey, Ms. Bonaparte, my child doesn't eat pork. I would appreciate you let me know when we're serving pork because she loves the meals. So it's a lot that goes into it, but they're masters at it. They know what to do, and they know what my anticipations are and how I want the program to be ran and make sure the students get what they need, so that they know my expectations.
Well, you referenced it a few moments ago, and you're talking about your hardworking staff. The month of March is kind of a time to celebrate them, right? It is School Nutrition Month, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And there's also School Breakfast Week. Tell us a little bit about that. I know every year there's usually some type of celebrations in the schools around lunchtime or something. In honor of that, this year, obviously, with the situation being what it is with the pandemic, makes that more difficult. But tell me what is going on this month.
Well, it's National School Nutrition Month for the whole month of March, and it's National School Breakfast Week for 8th through the 12th. One of the things that the program is doing, even though we can't bring skaters in and wrestlers in, and it's Score Big, so we're trying to do a theme about letting the staff wear a jersey on next week. That's one of the things that we're trying to incorporate. And we also are giving out prizes on the in-person side and the virtual side. And we're going to do it based on the student count because we're not collecting any names. So if you're the 100th student, you might win this. And we've used some of our cool points to get prizes from our vendors, which is at no cost to the program. It's the points that we receive for buying the product from the vendor. So we have a plan to give out even off the school bus. We're going to put some prizes on the school bus and let the team, the school nutrition assistant, give the prize to the student. So we're going to truck on with the National School Breakfast Week. It's just not going to be the traditional as if we were in the building. Now we're thinking outside the box to see how we can incorporate the virtual students and also the celebration. We're going to have certain items on the menu that they like during breakfast week, and for lunch we're loading them up with fresh fruits and vegetables, in which we're going to have zucchini, we're going to have ranch beans, those type of things, squash, turnip greens are going to be on the menu. So we're not going to deviate from if we were in a building, but we just have to make sure that the virtual students have the same opportunity to get prizes as the in-person. So we're pretty excited about that.
Well, I know, based on everything you've told me today, if there's any staff that can make it happen, it's your folks.
They're good at what they do. We're school nutrition to the heart. And I have... this is just a passion of mine. I've been doing this for quite some time. But the school nutrition, we just want to make sure we make the district proud. And my employees, because I call them my employees because, I have a personal relationship with all of them. Even though I know they're the district employees, I consider them family. And I try to give them as much support of me as I possibly can, and they do a real good job of if you look at the meals, Sheila, they are just awesome. They take pride in how they pack a meal, and that means a lot to the program and to the district, how the meals go out to the public. Even though they're at no cost, we want to make sure it's still an attractive meal with the correct specification of nutrients that the students need. Because they are not paying for them or is at no cost, we're not shying away from giving them the exact same thing they would have gotten if they were inside the building. So we're going to truck on. We got about 2.5 months left. Yeah. We don't look at the finish line because it never ends for school nutrition.
Right.
It never ends. We want to feed everyone we possibly can within the ramification and the that we can.
Well, we thank you for all of the work you and your staff have done this year. I think that is all the questions I have for you, unless there's something we didn't discuss that you think is important that you want families to know.
I think what I would like families to know, that the buses are out there with meals on them. waiting for them. So if we're missing something, they need to let us know. If we're missing an area, they need to let us know. We want to make sure that every student, because our district is huge, and we have planned where we have meals in every area of the county. But if we're missing something or missing students, we need to know, because even if students come back in the building, we still have virtual students we have to provide meals for. So I don't see this changing. I think they're used to doing it, and I do think families, any criticism or it doesn't matter. We need feedback about what's going on in the community.
Can't fix something if you don't know there's a problem.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much again for the work that you and your staff have done every day of every year, but most especially in this last year when things have just been kind of upended. And thank you very much for taking the time to join us and talk about it today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sheila.